Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and I'm the host of Tech Startup Stories. This podcast is really designed to share the unique and challenging journeys of all the people that are building small startups to scale-ups in the tech space. My background? Initially, I was in sales, and then I moved into marketing, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing tech companies. But my passion is really startups. And that led me back to helping tech startups set up their marketing and go-to-market functions where the budgets are tight and the resources are few and far between. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Andy Lambert. Andy is part of the founding team of a company called ContentCal. What's really interesting about them is that they have already gone through their exit. So Andy's going to share some of his experiences and talk to us about his journey. So welcome to the show, Andy.
Hey, Natalie, good to be here.
I'm excited to hear all of your experiences and all the highs and the potential lows of your journey. So how did you get into the career you're in?
I actually started in B2B sales. So like any salesperson that does quite well, you think, I want to do this for myself. How hard can it hit? Right? Come up with an idea and just sell it. So and after probably about 10 years of being in sales, I thought, right, I want to get into business, into being at the coalface and starting something. Wasn't quite ready to start something from scratch. Just had my first child, didn't want to take the financial risk, etc. So found a business that existed in the US and they wanted to set up in the UK. So I could take a salary, but basically start it from scratch. So yeah, it was the perfect opportunity. Sadly, it was in construction tech, and it made me realize that I never want to work anywhere near the construction industry. But it was a fascinating journey. Made me realize quite how hard it is to start stuff from scratch. Maybe appreciate the value of product market fit when you've got a nice product that you can sell. A lot easier than having something where you're trying to figure out who on earth would buy this thing. So very hard at the coalface, but for some strange reason, gave me the bug for doing this. So that company was then sold to Oracle, which was my first lesson in, if you're starting something, make sure you get equity in the business, because I didn't. So I watched those around me get a nice payday and me go, I did a lot of work for, we got paid, but I learned a bit. But yeah, that was an expensive lesson to learn. Anyway, the person that I was doing that business with, he became my mentor. And honestly, it's probably one of the best life hacks you could ever have, is have someone that truly cares about your success and someone that you can share your career journey with. And basically, I just call him my work dad. And absolute privilege to know him. And his name is Colin. And after that construction tech business was sold, he introduced me to a guy called Alex, who he was also mentoring. I was like, you're mentoring two of us. I feel cheated on. So anyway, he invited me to meet Alex when Alex was doing a pitch to investors as part of this thing called the Accelerator Academy. So where they go through 9 weeks of like trying to build the business. They've all got ideas. And I was there at pitch day. And I was there at pitch day, unemployed at this point, thinking, I wonder, like, any of these look interesting? Then this chap, Alex, took the stage to talk about the agency that I'd built and this idea for what would become ContentCal. I liked the idea. We hit it off. And the following day, I joined his company. And Colin, who had obviously had a nice payday from the previous business, said, well, if you join, I'll fund it to the tune of $250,000 to get you guys going. Like, consider me in. So
Wow.
so I might not have got the payday from that from the construction tech business, and of course, when you raise money, it isn't a personal payday, but that more than made up for my mistake in not getting equity, because that then became the foundation for what would become ContentCal and take me on the journey.
Amazing. And so with ContentCal, where did your idea for the business come from?
So I can't be credited with the idea. The idea came from the guy I referenced, Alex. So he already had this agency, and the way that content plans worked at that day, when it still do, to be fair, now, is that typically agencies and their clients would share their plans for content on like a Google Sheet, and they would share it with their clients, go backwards and forwards on email for approvals, etc. So we're like with most business ideas, they're born out of your own pain and like, oh, this is just frustrating. And also, like most business ideas, typically when people have found a way to solve their own problems through homemade solutions like Google Sheets or kind of WhatsApps and that kind of thing, where they care enough about a problem that they found a way to solve it themselves without software, that's usually an incredibly good clue that that market could do with some dedicated bit of software to solve that problem. And because we felt the pain directly, we understood this problem really, really well. And that then was the initial idea. So we turned Alex's sketch into, a living and breathing thing, and yeah, started taking it to market.
So, with the organization, you said you had your other co-founder. How many were in the founding team? Tell me a little bit more about that team.
Yeah, three of us. So Alex was the CEO. He had the initial idea, and basically his ambition was always to run like a venture scale business. He always wanted ContentCal to become $100 million plus business. Me, my ambition's always been a little lower. It's fair to say. I'm like, I want to create something that I could look back on and go, I built that. That was always been my true motivation to build something that people absolutely love, right? And it just, a really well regarded product. That's might sound like a real grandiose ambition, but that's the thing that motivated me. And of course, getting a payday at the end is always good, but that wasn't the overriding ambition. And then there was Lawrence, who handled like product and design. So across the three of us, Alex doing all investor relation stuff, me doing anything that touches customers. So whether that's sales, marketing, customer service, anything that our customer touched was me. And then Lawrence was everything engineering and tech related. So across those three, we covered every area of the business, and we went incredibly far with like the three of our expertise in those as a little kind of trifecta. It didn't really design it in that way. It just happened that, we've all got our kind of zones of greatness, as you call it. So, because I often see a lot of founding teams come to a lot of arguments and issues, especially when there's like co-founders together with different directions, etc. We were on sometimes like treading on each other's toes. We had such like distinct lanes that we were in that, all united around a clear vision, so we could just freely execute in our own spaces.
How long was it just the three of you before you started to bring in more people into the business?
Not very long at all, to be honest. So we very quickly started scaling the business because we had raised capital early on. So this was always going to be a venture-backed business. So profitability was not on our radar at all. It was just pure growth. And the seasons have changed a little bit in terms of how to run startups now. But in 2016, it was very much the thing: fund the business and grow like mad. So that's what we did. So hired a designer, hired marketers, and then I hired a sales team and hired a customer service team. And whilst over the first year we maybe hired 5 people, it just accelerated to a point where by the time we were selling the business, we were over 60 employees.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about that journey of going from the three of you to, building that team, and the kind of great bits about that and the challenges as well.
Yeah. Certainly lots of challenges. Probably the biggest lesson that most founders, I think, make, certainly in early days when you're cash constrained, is hiring very junior people and expecting you can train them up and they all have the same, you thinking that people have the same mindset as you, which is like, just figure it out, right? Because that's what you need. There's no map, there's no playbook. especially early days of the startup. As we started to grow into scale, we became more of a scale up than a startup. There are ways of doing things with product market fit. There's clear processes. But over, since launching in 2016, 2017 and 18, super, super hard. And we also, what made it particularly complex is that we were running an agency as well that also helped with the cash flow of the business. So there was like the social media services side of the business. And that's a really low margin game, right? When you provide services, you're running at maybe best 11 to 15% margins. And we had probably about 20 people on that side of the business. So that became like a real like HR nightmare because you're not hiring, you're hiring kind of more junior people to do client work, etc. And honestly, one of the best things that we did in 2019, 2020 was just basically say, forget running the agency at all. Let's fund the business properly, because trying to focus on two areas sounds obvious in hindsight, right? Trying to build two areas of the business, your software and services side at the same time, always means you're flitting between, you're not fully focused. And people problems drag you down more than any other problem, right? Like there's always some drama going on, especially when you're hiring a lot of, I sound really negative here, but like, especially when you're hiring lots of young folk, there's always drama. Someone doesn't turn up because they're hungover. It's like, no, I can't be dealing with this anymore. We're done. We're getting rid of that services side of the business. I can't be bothered with that. And and I had the same thing with hiring quite a junior sales team as well. Very inconsistent. I should have just hired more senior folk or just waited longer, because I've always had this romantic notion that I want to find people that came from, it's a problem, and this everything is bad about this, but like want to find people like myself. There's a lot of problems in like having that as an HR strategy, thinking people that didn't go to uni or whatever, that had to really graft to get where they want to, and they have to figure it out and have great degrees of coachability. And yeah, trying to find people like yourself and hiring people because they are similar to you. One, it's a cognitive bias that so many hiring managers suffer from anyway, because people that they're like, I can recognize them, they're like me, I like them, and then hire them. But there are so many problems to that too, because it got so much better when we started hiring people that have been there and done it. And it got easier, of course, as we started to grow, because, you're not asking people to come work in a basement in East London for a business that is kind of like, will it, won't it work? And we're paying the square root of naff all. Obviously got a much easier, like 2019, after we raised another decent fundraise, we could pay people properly. I think, quite a lot. The TLDR here, so much pain and problem in how you scale and hire employees. The longer you can wait before you hire anyone, the better. Because quite frankly, I think we would have gone much further had we not hired so many people in the early days. Because then your focus between the three of us, the focus is like only 50% now on like the things we're doing to drive the business forward. The rest of the 50 is just trying to solve some nonsense that's happening across the team. So lots of problems with that, but I think it's just a standard journey that everyone goes on. We have to kind of go through those processes and learn what bad looks like before you can figure out what good looks like.
I think your story is something that many people would resonate with in those early days, not having the budget, so going with what you can get, and also, I'm a big fan of hiring somebody that needs coaching and helping them on their career journey. I love to help people, but the downside of that obviously is the extra nurturing, and if you're time poor as well as budget poor, it can become a real issue over time. And sometimes it makes sense to, rather than hire two or three people, just get the one who can be self-sufficient, and you might not be able to necessarily nurture them on their journey, but you can move quicker to then be able to hire people to nurture through their careers. The people element of building your startup is, one of the most challenging. So let's talk about the tech itself and the journey that went on, because there was the services side of the business, and then the platform itself. And your colleague was very much responsible for the engineering, and your main kind of lead, Alex, was the ideas man in this. And what your approach was to really get that product into the hands of customers and sell it.
Okay, yeah, got it. So, this was a very painful journey to go on again. And 2016 and 17 was just purely a voyage of discovery. And yeah, and this is why, I keep on saying I certainly hired sales too early, because we didn't have a repeatable sales model with a really tightly constrained ICP. All obvious stuff. And yeah, we had made the mistake early on in the process through some early signals, because one of our beta customers in the early days was Sky. So we had made the mistake because, we got enamored with this kind of first customer being Sky. Like, oh, right, we serve enterprises. We're a big company solution, forgetting the fact that Alex, the founder, had actually just quit his job at Sky before starting, before coming up with the idea of ContentCal. So he had his mates there. So we had what we didn't recognize, because we're all first time founders, recognize the bias that had. The fact that they're giving us good grace to, they're not looking at other products because their mate said, oh, I've just built a product. Can you beta it for us? And it was only when I started looking at this more critically, I was like, something doesn't feel right here. And especially when I started going to market, doing all of the cold outreach and stuff that you have to do in the early days, of which non-glamorous, no one wants to do it, but like banging the phones, emails, lots of meeting people. Yeah, it's just endless amounts of effort to try and build growth. And I'm doing it all on a one-on-one basis. We didn't really do much marketing in the early days. No point in it really. Until you truly understand who you seek to serve. And I know this so much more clearly now, and I wish I knew it then. But anyway, um, I after the first year of just hitting and hoping, getting some meetings here, some signs of success here, no repeatable sales model had appeared. So that was probably about the first year it took us to get our first 100 customers. So it took us a long time to get those first 100 customers. So I thought, right, okay, going into 2018, we've got something here. It's clear that we have 100 people paying to use it. We have good retention and loyalty. So there's something here, but it's not consistent. It's like, you always think the startup's like that hockey stick where you're like, okay, cool, we've launched it, and then boom, we're off to the races. Did not happen in our world. And, it's more like, oh, yeah, I think there's some breathing a little sign of life into it. I think it's kind of alive, but I'm not sure. So then early 2018 kind of changed my approach. Read a book. I'm looking behind me because it's down there. I've got a couple of very dog-eared looking copies of it. It's called the Startup Owner's Manual. And quite literally, it's like a playbook for how to build your early customers. It's called the customer discovery process. And it just flips the whole sales process on its head. Rather than, me outreaching anyone who would listen to book a meeting to try and sell ContentCal to, I just flipped it into, oh, hey, Natalie, I've just recently launched this new startup, and we're early stage, and I'd love to get your feedback on what you think about the product. It's something that we're still trying to evaluate the market fit for. What's your take? And those messages landed much better because it's more like, I just go out for a coffee, buy someone a coffee, sit with them and just listen. And not me sell to them. I was obviously set the premise of like, here's the kind of thing that we're thinking about. What do you reckon? And something magical happened in those conversations. Because one, it meant that I had switched my mindset from like just selling and wanting to only hear the positive and just saying, okay, well, you told me that, you have a problem with content plans by ContentCal, go from that single mindset of like, I'm just want to get an outcome into, oh, actually, I'm just going to listen. And then I just went on like a 3-month journey of being, I had to balance this with trying to drive revenues, of course, at the same time. But on a 3-month journey of just like, okay, I'm going to take a scientific approach to this, of understanding all of the segments, had all the sticky notes up on my wall in my garage as I was working through this, of like, all right, we're getting great feedback from here. What are the correlations? Trying to draw the patterns, kind of like a detective in a crime book, get everything up on the wall, you draw those connections, and you're just like, something is clicking here. And I worked out that when I was saying the same thing at the same time to a certain cohort of people, everyone would nod. They're like, yeah, that's me. And that then was like, even now I get a kind of tingle down my spine when I'm like, you found it. Like, that is your product. That is the moment that you feel like that product market fit. And, again, when I tell you the audience segment, it's like painfully obvious. But unfortunately, it's quite often the thing that's staring you in the face is the thing you miss, which is, again, it's a very common early days founder mistake. And the segment was these small to mid-size agencies, because we understood the problem so well from that agencies had with their clients, and we could tell that story incredibly well because we had lived it and breathed it, and I was busy building an agency at the same time, so I could sit round the table with another agency founder and be like, this is hard, isn't it? Because we're there. It's not me selling to them, it's just like, it's now like a chat with someone that's like, yeah, nightmare, isn't it? So, it just flips it from like a sell into, I'm just having a chat, and it's like a consultation. And that now made it right. We can now create the sales collateral around this, because you now knew exactly the things we need to say. That sales collateral then informed all of our go-to-market messaging. Our website changed, our case studies changed. And whilst I had to convince other people in the business, they were like, we're focusing this on this kind of small to mid-size agency demographic. I'm like, no, it's not like we're changing the ambition of the business over the long term. What we need to do, and this is another concept I only understood later, which is called minimum viable customer. The smallest customer group that you can serve today that will give you the initial foundations to build your business upon. Because what you want to do is serve the smallest possible segment that truly understands you. And then what happens when you serve that real tight niche is that they all talk. So you get like this wonderful word of mouth in a small nebulous segment, and then you can move on to different customer groups. It gives you your foundation to drive growth. And I didn't explain that as articulately as I did back then. I was just like, I think it's right. I think this is the way forward, rather than having a concept of minimum viable audience. But that is the most important thing that I learned in like building early product market fit, of which then scaled afterwards. Because once you have that, you know exactly who you seek to serve. You know how you can find them. You know the communities you need to hang out in. You know that the influencers that drive preference in this space. You then can change your sales messaging and train your salespeople to say this thing at this time and watch. They'll nod along. And you can then think, right, I've now got a machine that we can build. And that machine then went into our ads as well, because then it all became predictable. Everything started to fall into line. Does that make sense?
It does. It really does. And I really love that minimum customer.
Viable audience, yeah.
Yeah, the viable audience that, we talk about minimal viable product, minimal viable, whatever, product market fit, founder market fit. There's a lot of different terms that people use, but I particularly like that because it really helps you narrow in. And when you don't have a huge amount of resources or budget, word of mouth is so powerful. And in those early days where you're trying to acquire as many customers that there's a solid fit with, um, so that they're going to be loyal, and they're going to say great things about you where there is a really solid fit. But on top of that, they're going to lead you into other things. I think that's fantastic. So moving forward in time, things are going great. You've scaled up. The product has been the real focus. How did you guys get into even an internal discussion, or whether you were approached by Adobe for the acquisition?
Well, it wasn't a plan. So we weren't exploring a trade sale at that point. As you say, things were going well. We grew tons through COVID. Um, you know, everyone went online, and having a kind of collaborative content calendar, which everyone could share remotely. It's kind of worked. So all of that was all of that worked out very well for the business, and we had then just raised, and this was the beginning of 21, we'd just raised our Series A, so properly brought in some institutional investors. So, like to that point, we had raised like seed fund. We had a lot of high net worth investors. And Alex had done an amazing job at raising capital, and yeah, only then had we just like we put on our big boy shoes because we're like, okay, fine, we've now got institutional capital, properly Series A, all the press that goes around that and all that stuff. And then, we'd started hire the people that we really needed in the business to really scale it beyond the founding team. That's always like an existential challenge for founding team because you're bringing in MD, you're bringing in CMO, you're bringing in a CTO, etc. All of those people to build the structures. So all of that, naturally comes with some challenges for the founding team. You're like, okay, this is all good. It's now turned into a machine. Part of you can go, I don't have to be as stressed out anymore. It's a thing, we pays us a salary, everything, it's all good. But then because the human brain is a weird thing, you're like, I used to do this stuff. This is me. And you can't help but like, I'm probably quite an annoying sod anyway. I'm like, are we sure we want to do this? No one wants like that annoying founder around who's just being like challenging people. But anyway, I was probably that guy for a little bit. Anyway, mid 2021, we'd only just raised a Series A. We're on that next growth trajectory. As I said, Alex's ambition was always to make this into a $100 million exit plus. So that was always the plan. Just happened sooner than expected. And Adobe pinged us a message and said, we have a chat. It's literally as simple as that. So he fell off our chairs. And yeah, therein started what felt like a long kind of like conversation, but actually in reality, certainly compared to other exits, it was pretty short. So it's probably 6 months from that initial can we have a chat to deal closed and money's exchanged. So yeah, 6 months in that, but obviously that was an incredibly intense 6 months, as I'm sure you can imagine. Yeah.
And so as part of the founding team, what are the kind of things that you needed to do in that 6 months to prepare for that exit?
Yeah, the note to myself in future would be like, be better with documentation. And we weren't too bad. We weren't too bad actually. But even still, like the amount of processes that you need to go through, documentation that you need to have, both technical support wise, customer contract wise, because in our kind of you have like shared kind of deal room, which is a big shared folder between you and your acquirer of all of the components, disclosures, contracts, everything, right? So we were fairly tight on that stuff, but of course, it's still a huge amount of process to go on. Things that you potentially wouldn't have spoken or covered before, like contracts about like making sure people had to do all these kind of last minute contracts to ensure that none of our employees could claim any IP for anything that they've done within the business. So kind of there's little kind of holes in our stuff that we had to solve. I won't go into all of them or bore everyone's senseless with it, but yeah, it was definitely a process, but it's also like so heavily relationship driven, right? So we're on calls with them all the time, meeting the rest of the leadership team, presenting back, our even though they had our documents, but we still had to prepare these long presentations, 3-hour long presentations on like customer growth, customer segments, go-to-market strategy, SEO, progress, like partnerships, influence, everything, painting the picture. I mean, we did this stuff for investors, but this was another level, as I'm sure you know, right? It's like, uh, yeah, you're handing over such a significant asset. So in the same way, like if you sell a car and you got your service history and all that stuff in a binder, but it's like that. But if you had it in fill a flipping room with all of the stuff that comes with it, yeah. So, but I think what really did strike me, I think this is the kind of key message, because yes, of course, I don't think it's any great surprise that there's a lot of paperwork that goes with this. It wouldn't surprise anyone or might surprise people to know that this is incredibly relationship driven, and you're ultimately still, when you're selling a product to a company, right? Of course, the product needs to be right. Even if you're selling end to end to an end user, the product needs to be right for sure, needs to fit a need, but they also need to trust you. They also need to like you, right? Know, like, trust, all of that usual stuff. And, uh, don't underestimate that for the people that are acquiring you, because they're acquiring both the business, they're acquiring the expertise and the people. So, there's, fortunately, we are quite nice folk, even if I do say so ourselves. We spent a lot of time like being super diligent with all of their requests, doing everything we could for them. I mean, sometimes the requests seemed like, what? Like, really? But you're like, okay, let's set aside like, yet another request. You're like, okay, let's smile. Let's just do it, and basically treat them like you would over service a customer. That's the kind of my way that I looked at it. And then, yeah, ended up getting the deal done, and it became one of the fastest ever integrations of a company into Adobe, because we just carried through that level of diligence and care, and like, in the same way that we've applied this to the whole of ContentCal being incredibly customer centric. I mean, everyone says they are, but like, we are obsessed with customers, like, and everything we could do. That's why we had like 24/7 live chat support that we'd respond to within 5 minutes. And it's like, we were, everyone needs to have a vector that they differentiate on, something that is very hard to copy, because it's very easy to copy features. It's not easy to copy feelings. So when people are like, you know what, even if like Hootsuite have added a new feature that ContentCal doesn't have, I really like working with ContentCal. Like, I feel supported. I'm here. I feel like I know the people. We're always at every event, like marketing events, and people could come and chat to me or the others. And it's that feeling that kind of goes through everything that we did, the way that we approach the sale process, the way we approach post-sale and integration. Yeah, it's just a mindset and a culture difference, where like, just a culture of, we truly, truly care about delivering a really good result. And it's the same thing, like when you sell a product to a customer, you want them to have a delightful experience and get the right result from it. And it's the same when you sell a company, and you're like, I want to do everything I can to make sure you're happy with what you bought. That's it.
I think that's really lovely. And I love the way that you treated them as a customer and gave them the support you would give a customer. And yeah, we've all had moments where you've had to grin and bear it with customer demands. But it's very easy in these situations for people to feel like it's them and us. And that sounds like it was the opposite with you guys, where you embraced the fact that they needed more information. You understood why. And you went through that journey, fully opening yourselves up to support that transition. And like you say, the fastest integration into Adobe, that's incredible. So well done to you and the team. In terms of the journey, once you'd kind of hit that deal closed, what was the plan for yourselves, the founding team, and the rest of the team?
So yeah, a lot is the negative thing is, like, when you get acquired by a company like Adobe, there are functions you're no longer going to need.
Sure.
So yeah, it was a very difficult time of of a lot of the 60 employees had to go. Adobe they're seasoned acquirers. So we got incredibly lucky because Adobe must buy more companies probably than anyone else in the world, right? There can't be many people that buy more companies. So they know what they're doing, really respectful, understand the process. Yeah, so they're brilliant. And yeah, but there's no way of making it particularly easy when you're like, yeah, a lot of the team need to go. Adobe did their best to try and like redeploy some of our team, and some of our team went into different parts of Adobe, so which is lovely. So they had to go through an application process, but they were all considered, which was brilliant. So there was a lot of like internal stuff, but of course, a lot of people then, it was the end of the road. So now we've probably only got maybe 7 of us original folk still at Adobe, just over time, attrition, yada yada. And yeah, I mean, I'm still here out of choice, no longer obligated to. And yeah, it's been a fascinating journey as a startup. You just do whatever you can. You kind of fail forward. You're just constantly stumbling and be like, I'll just figure it out. And, when you're building a SaaS business, you're thinking, okay, well, you try and meet a singular customer need or whatever, and you focus on serving it in English to the UK and the US typically, and that's probably about it. Accessibility requirements, who cares? It's just like, you got to get it done. And all of the things that I just didn't know when you're building products that serve tens of millions of users plus in 180 countries, all these different languages, and you think the product needs to work equally well in India, sub-Saharan Africa, as well as UK and US across desktop, mobile, and tablet. And you start to realize that, oh my word, there's a lot I did not know about product development and how to build things at this kind of scale. And that has been a humbling experience because, I came into this thinking, I get this kind of stuff. And of course, there are the natural frustrations that you're going to feel, right? You feel the inertia of a bigger company, even though they're an incredible business, Adobe. I'm very privileged to work there, but like, there is still inertia, no doubt about it. It's a huge machine that serves this many people, so it's not like, oh, we've had a customer some feedback today about what things we're missing. Let's go ship it tomorrow, which is the startup days that I do miss. I miss that kind of like immediate response, being like, oh, hey, Natalie, you shared this yesterday. Guess what? Today it's live. What do you think? And like that immediate customer delight, as you can tell from everything that I've just been talking about, like really miss that level of dialogue because I'm very removed from customers these days. I try and be at these customer events, but ultimately it's still like there's a big lag between feedback implementation because it's a machine built, at this kind of scale. So it means that, will I stay here forever? Is it like my passion? No, not really. But has it been an incredible learning experience that I couldn't get anywhere else? Absolutely, for sure. So, yeah, been a very interesting ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, wow, absolutely. And, I think a lot of founders, when they go through an exit, kind of have a bit of a breather and often decide to say, I'm going to take some time out. And to the point of Ellie Portnoy, he intentionally decided to take a year out, but then only ended up managing 3 months before he had the bug to go back in. But since you went into a full-time role at Adobe, which is, an incredibly exciting organization, albeit a massive one, that's probably giving you a little better work-life balance to kind of have that downtime in your personal life to reconnect with family and friends, and have a little bit of a break from the intensity that is startup life. But interesting that you sort of said, so what are you currently doing at the moment? We know you're working for Adobe. We know you've done, more time than you were committed to, which shows the great value of the business.
Yeah, so, whilst I'm doing, what I'm doing on day to day, there's things that I need to create, right? So I'm always I'm always trying to find other ways that I can kind of express my desire to build stuff, whilst Mrs. Lambert is happy that I have a full-time job with a pension and all that good stuff. So, fortunately, Adobe's really lovely because they have so many creative folk working for them. Like most of my colleagues are artists, musicians. They all have a side hustle. They all have something. One of my PM colleagues has just been touring Europe with her opera orchestra. So, and they're the kind of really creatively cool people. Honestly, I've never worked with smarter people in my life. Like, I am so dumb compared to my colleagues.
I'm
And
sure that's not the case.
it's yeah, that's amazing. So anyway, so Adobe are really good at like understanding people's need for like self-expression side hustles. So
Great. What advice would you give any, first time or early startup founders?
I'll try and keep this short. And to be honest, I'm going to repeat myself because I think it bears repeating. Yeah, focus on the narrowest audience you can to start with, because that is the thing that will start. That will get you to product market fit quicker, and it's so easy. It is so tempting to start thinking broader and wider, and get buffeted with all of that because there's always more you could do. But be narrowly focused doesn't mean you'll be narrowly focused forever, but be narrowly focused initially, because that makes everything better, most specifically getting you to product market fit, which is all about like driving that word of mouth engine around your brand. And once you've got that, then you're off to the races and can build on that foundation moving forward. Yeah, and also don't hire a load of really young people that have never done this kind of stuff before, unless you love spending your whole time doing HR stuff.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed the chat. Thanks, Natalie.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.